Okay, good evening, everyone. Omitofu, welcome. My name is Saiba Varma, and it's my honor and privilege to introduce our speaker for this evening. Um, the topic for today is Buddhism in a technologically advancing world. I think a topic that we can all relate to and learn from. And our esteemed speaker for today is Venerable Dr. Jue Wei, who is the director of the Nan Tien Institute's Humanistic Buddhism Center and the head of the program for the Institute's Applied Buddhist Studies and Humanistic Buddhism programs. Venerable Dr. Jue Wei holds a PhD in religious studies, an MA in Buddhist studies, and another MA in business administration, and an MSc in computer science and engineering. So thank you so much for being with us today, and we're very excited to hear your talk.
Oh, thank you very much to Professor Saiba Varma for this very kind introduction and facilitation. And thank you to Venerable Miao Zhang for the invitation. I'd like first to ask for your permission to share screen, if I may. Let me know if you see it. Does it look good? Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yay, thank you. So thank you all friends for being here. I know for some of you it's pretty late in the evening, but it's so good to feel like I'm back home. This is such a kind of us reuniting again since my PhD was a 10-year process. I wanted to say ordeal, but I think it's like a process at the University of the West. And so I feel very close to Shifang Temple and to my friends in America. And now that I'm here down under, I've also made so many friends, many of whom are also here from Asia as well as from Australia. So I wanted to begin by recognizing the triple gem of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Together, they make up the lineage, philosophy, and community of Buddhism that I embrace to deepen my engagement, reflection, and scholarly investigation. Today, I intended this to be a workshop, but because I've only about 50 minutes, or 55 at best, I thought we'll use this time where we can share. So I'll be inviting you to put some answers to questions into the chat stream. I'll be inviting you to unmute to speak. So we'll try to just make up time because I couldn't put you into breakout rooms given the little time that we have. So what I'd like to do is today just start with us recognizing how we navigate in this technologically advancing world. In fact, I wanted to say technologically demanding world. But for some, I thought it may not be so demanding compared to others. And I'd like to highlight the Buddhist perspective of how we should master one thing that's extremely important, and that's our attention. And why, I'll explain to you why attention is so important. And certainly not let the powers out there take over control of this thing that's increasingly being commodified. And as a Mahayana humanistic Buddhist, I would like to draw your attention to a very important concept called bodhicitta. And finally, if time permits, I want to share with you my idea of metaverses or communities of loving kindness, how that can ride on technology to raise awareness of loving kindness. And we'll leave time for questions. So to begin, navigating in these worlds. So I'd like to invite you to just use the chat stream to answer these two questions. Very easy. Is your day dominated by watching screens? And which are your most frequently used apps? Just a few. Just quickly, let us take a stock take and see where we are in this platform or how we are doing. And
We put it in.
just put it in the chat stream if you can.
Mm.
We have Linda, who works on the computer all day. That sounds like me too. And mostly using Google, YouTube, WhatsApp, Office, yeah, Microsoft Office apps. Okay. We have Peter, who uses PowerPoint, Gmail, and video games. Nice. Ah, this is so good. No screens at home. Wow. Using phone and computer, using a device, using Google, Yahoo, Gmail. Yeah. Can see that some of us work on the computer all day. Some of us look at emails, Facebook, YouTube. Well, we can see a few, we can still see a few common themes coming through. That's great. Oh, emails, chat. Yeah, all about technology. That's right. But technology is actually enabling us in many ways. So, all right, great. Keep typing. So it looks like many of us are using our technology. Oh, someone is glued to YouTube. Okay. Super glue, I assume. So now let's look at the next question that I'd like to ask you. Just look at these questions and just give it a little bit of thought. Is your well-being impacted in any way due to your social media and screen use? In particular, have you noticed whether your attention span is being affected, especially negatively? What are your thoughts? Again, you're welcome to maybe unmute to share, or you can type in the chats, whatever you're comfortable with. It's time for a little bit of reflection. So let's first take a look with a start, with a state of affairs. Trained to swipe. Oh my goodness, that reminds me of E.T.
Oh, funny. Oh,
Yes. Yeah. Reading more long form articles. Some people have said that they will not listen to podcasts that are too short, for example. Retiring from Facebook. Yeah. Yeah, lack of exercise, certainly.
Venerable, yeah. You mentioned how our well-being can be
Yes.
impacted. And one of the things I mentioned earlier was that I read newspapers online. So I'm using an old-fashioned mechanism to get news by using digital, the new avenue, so to speak. But my well-being is impacted because I'm always reading about, especially our political polarization. And I find myself almost being drawn into it and following various developments. And I do this in the morning, even before I eat my breakfast. I'm drinking coffee and getting more and more, kind of circling downward because of it, because I'm reading usually bad news and stuff. So yes, my well-being is impacted by it. On the other hand, I feel like I should be following the news, but part of that's self-selective. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Because you know why? There are algorithms. There are algorithms behind your computer, powered by cookies, that push to you the news that they think will sell something, that will distract us. And these algorithms know what to push to us because the psychologists have already figured out that when they give us negative, unwholesome news, we get hooked more than if they push to us anything that is wholesome, that is good. So there's a whole machinery behind that little screen that is pushing to us what they think they want us to see as opposed to what we want. So we think that we have a lot of power, that we think is all individually tailored according to my needs. It's not. There's an algorithm back there. And that is why they are here to cause us those mental ill health. Those issues were created specifically. And what you are feeling, unfortunately, is not alone. It has become a systemic thing. And the more we do it, the more we want to go back to it. So that's why today I want to speak specifically about your attention and what's happening to your attention. So thank you so much for that comment, as well as all that is going on in the chat. This is so rich. We should save the chat because this is really the current state of affairs of what's happening around us. But it doesn't have to be the end. Now, what I would like to share with you, and it's about mindfulness. It's really evidence-based today. There's so much science around why mindfulness is helpful. And in the modern society today, Buddhism is very often equated with mindfulness because people have found mindfulness to be helpful. But I would like to also point back to what type of mindfulness are we talking about. I like to focus on something which very often sati smriti, which is about, about actually the attention. What is it that we can recall? Some of you may know, right? Mindfulness is one component of the Noble Eightfold Path. And that means it's going to lead us to the liberation from the suffering that you have so eloquently expressed just now, and also in the chats. So the question is, how are we going to put this mindfulness into our daily life, especially in navigating this digital world? Would anyone like to offer a solution? Or your own practice? How do you see mindfulness helping you in navigating this technologically demanding world? Would anybody like to unmute and share? Peter, you...
Yeah, one thing I try to do is to tally the time I'm spending on different activities. It doesn't mean I'm successful at curtailing them, but at least I'm aware of them to see where my time is going.
Perfect. And this is like sort of limiting my digital footprint every day. Even if we don't know, even if we are not successful, at least we become aware every day how much time, and is it on the rise, or whether it's getting less. Is it for the weekends or is it weekdays? So that is also one way. Another way is perhaps looking at our social media use, the YouTube, for example. What is the content? Being mindful of the content that we are watching. So I want to then move on to look at the Buddhist world making. This is actually about why people say that Buddhism is a way of life. Buddhists believe that seeing the way reality is and seeing the way one exists or unfold in reality is what will help us to be grounded in this world so that we can be more virtuous, or we can go closer to our goal. That could be, let's say, an awakening goal. But to do that, we have to first understand how this world operates. First, we have to understand impermanence. Things change. if we think back to, let's say, 10 years ago and now, and the kind of technology that we are engaging in 10 years ago compared to now is different. And very likely, 1 year later, 1 year from today, we'll be dealing with different technology again. So this concept of impermanence means that we are in a constant state of flux. Everything is changing around us, including ourselves. And whatever we watch on social media is also changing us. And it's changing the structure of our brain. And that's dangerous because anytime the structure of our brain changes, it's much harder to reverse, and which is what those advertisers are doing on us. So next, the concept of dependent co-arising means that we adopt a very relational way of seeing everything as interdependent. So we are not an independent identity, which is what sometimes the world tries to tell us, that everything is individual, it's made for me, this is customized for me. And we think that the phone is pushing to me things that I really want. No, they don't at all. So recognize this. Whatever you click is being sent to some algorithm, which then decides and sends the information to a lot of advertisers. And then the advertisers will create something back for you. Just think of YouTube. Whatever you see on YouTube is customized for you. Why? It's based on what you have seen. And then it comes back again, and it comes back again. If what you're seeing is all positive, wholesome Dharma stuff, it will come back with Dharma stuff. But if what you see has a little tint of something that is less wholesome, that will come back to you in 10 times speed because there's a lot more of that content out there. So beware, dependent co-arising. Third, the concept of non-self. That means I am not a stable thing. I'm constantly being changed. And what am I being changed by? What I view all the time. Whatever I view on the computer, on that device, whatever I view on that social media is changing me. Non-self, that's what it means. And finally is emptiness. Emptiness is recognizing that because I am relatively constituted, I can also change myself. This is a deep, deep insight. And this is the insight that we as Mahayana Buddhists would like us to constantly reflect upon. It's knowing this principle of emptiness that will allow us and empower us to make choices. The way to regain ourselves is to understand how we can make a choice, and we can. We do not have to wake up and turn on our phone. We do not have to go home and switch on the screen and the laptop. We have a choice. And if you do, it's okay because you made the choice as opposed to being a karmic habit. Okay? So that's what the Buddhist way of looking at the world, first of all, helps us understand the reality, what we are encountering, but also empowering us back to say, pause, pause. We can make a choice here. We can determine and become more aware of our digital footprint so that we can make a choice of what we want to watch, how we want to watch. So that's the way we embrace the digital life. The digital life is here to stay unless you decide to become a hermit That's the way the world is. If you want to talk to your grandchildren, unfortunately, you have to use these social media devices. But the question is, how can you use these digital devices to your own benefit? So how do you embrace or include the Dharma in your daily life? And do you believe that the Dharma can actually positively impact your well-being? If so, how? And if not, why not? Would anyone like to share? Either in the chat or you can unmute to share.
I was thinking, Venerable, that the embracing of the Dharma is, and I've mentioned this before, kind of looking at things through, I call it the Dharma screen or the tea strainer, that a lot of times when I'm thinking about relationships or what to do or responsibility, I run it through the positive side of the precepts. You know, is it respecting people? Is it honoring people? Is it putting other people's needs first? And that then will call me up short when I'm getting a little too self-involved. So that's one of the things that I do. And as far as technology, I think there's something to be said for being old. I wasn't raised on technology, so it's easier to set it aside than I think for younger people.
Yes, Ina, thank you so much for that. However, you also started by saying respect. So recognizing that the younger generations are raised on technology and respecting the fact that that's how they communicate.
Right.
That's their life. So the question is, how can we help them choose more wholesome contents, use the technology ethically, responsibly, respectfully, and conducting that conversation with them, as opposed to telling them and restricting them. And that, I believe, is what you mean by that sense of respect and honoring.
And finding ways of using it to teach. Instead of saying don't, find a way of saying do.
That's right. That's right. And that's what Buddhism is as well. It's never static. It's always using different ways. And Venerable Master Sheng Yun has taught us and showed us, demonstrated how he's such an innovator.
Yeah.
Thank you. I see some really good points up in the chat as well of making the right choices. So I just hope that everyone feel that you can be empowered as opposed to feeling that I'm being controlled. All right, I'm going to move right on. You can keep typing into the chat if you wish. But I want to come to this point of attention. So attention is called manasikara, and it is sort of like the important part of appreciating how our attention to something. So meditation often requires us to place our attention on an object. So that could be our breath, or it could be, say, Om Padme Padme Hum, a mantra, the name of a Buddha, but always putting our attention on one thing. Be single-minded. What's happening to what technology is doing is distracting us from being single-minded. So that's why the meditation practice is so important, to bring us back, to regain our attention. So often say that now meditation practice is kind of essential as a practice in a digital world. It's even more important today. So what does attention require? It requires an object. And to recognize that what we place our attention on shapes the mind and our behavior. So therefore, practicing to single task instead of multitask, again, is shaping our mind and behavior. Recognizing that if I'm doing one thing, I can't do something else. And it actually takes more energy to swap, which is why we get very tired after watching our digital devices for too long, because it's just flashing things, too many flashing advertisements, too many moving parts. Whereas if we are meditating, we actually collect our energy back. We feel better, more energized after meditation. Same time spent meditating, same time spent on the device, you'll find that meditating helps you regain energy. So with that, what do you think are some negative objects of your attention? So just think back to yourself. This is a reflective time. What are some negative objects of your attention today? But what are also some beneficial objects of your attention? Now think back to that object. Were you able to focus your attention for 3 seconds, 3 minutes, or 3 hours? Feel free to either unmute and share, or again, place your answers in the chat.
Speaking specifically about today, for me was concern for the future, specifically medical issues going on. And, it could easily go from minutes to many minutes. But then I fall back to the Dharma of putting my mind here and now and not focusing on the future.
Yes, that's right. Thank you so much, Peter, for sharing how our attention can be somewhere else. Very much a lot of times is recollecting our past and sometimes not forgiving ourselves for things that we have done in the past, being too hard on ourselves or on others about some incidents of the past, or placing our attention on something, worrying about the future, and then worrying ourselves sick. And it becomes rumination after a while because it's not solving the problem. It's different from planning and trying to proactively solve a problem. And that is time for us to bring our attention back. So Peter, I congratulate you for realizing that, because that takes practice.
Thank you. And it's a credit to my teachers who have helped me.
Yay!
Yes.
Good teachers and friends and good Dharma friends.
Yes.
I know our minds are flighty, and it's not our fault, It's actually very systemic. We have now been trained to be flighty. We are constantly under this fight or flight mode, constantly being disturbed by news of we're constantly feeling the pressure. But to do what? What's wrong? So it's so necessary then, or more necessary then, for us to come back to ourselves and look at ourselves. A lot of times, but the problem is that we are operating from a position of scarcity. And that's why we keep wanting to go somewhere else, to grab things, to fill in what we perceive as a whole in us, as in HOLE. But what the Buddha is trying to tell us is that we are already whole, WHOLE, that we have the Buddha nature in us. We have enough love in us. We have enough kindness and compassion and patience and all in us. That we shouldn't need to feel like that I need more. When we can be more contented with ourselves, we can view the world from sort of like the eye of the hurricane. So doing that, just, yes, Angelica adding the freeze component, wanting to avoid responsibilities by putting like an ostrich, right? Just burying our head into the sand and not numbing ourselves to the world. And what do? You go through those YouTube videos and social media. That's a great way of numbing ourselves. But does that really help us to still our minds, to look back out into the world again from a position of wholeness, from a position of I would call sufficiency, as opposed to scarcity. And when we feel that we are sufficient, we are more open. We can converse, we can dialogue. Yes, Rita, so it's so good. Think of every moment that you're performing all the time. You're not only performing when you're on stage, you have the practice to help you.
We're actually all supposedly performing when we're in front of people, you know, even our friends and stuff. But I find if while I'm on stage, I can focus, I have to focus better. I have to focus because if I don't, it doesn't happen well. So getting that same mindset through the rest of the day, that's where the challenge is. Yeah.
And you know you can because you have that practice. So yeah, you have that power, Rita.
Yeah, just I have to work on making that happen. Yes, exactly.
Great. Thank you. So attention. What's happening now? Our attention is commoditized as attention economy. The tech industry's business model really is all these algorithms trying to exploit our attention. And that's why these technologies are called persuasive technologies, getting us to consume, getting us to vote. And many debates are now being held about the ethics of such persuasive technologies. While that takes place, know that our cognition is being affected. Our entire cognitive process is changing as a result of the way we consume this technology. So it's not just a simple thing. So in the past, you have a choice whether you want to watch these advertisements or not. Now it's no more because they get pushed to you. Your choices are getting less and less. So what I would like to propose is a Buddhist-inspired attention ecology as opposed to an economy. So this is not something I invented. It was actually by a group of scholars whom I've worked with recently. And we're looking at this concept of attention ecology, which is creating an environment, recognizing that Buddhist practice, and the same as singing practice, all these practices are trying to help us refocus and recapture our attention. But we need an environment. We need a positive shared environment, and therefore the need for the Noble Eightfold Path to come first in our daily life. Right now, I have a group of students from Bhutan studying with us at the Nantian Institute, and the ambassador for Bhutan residing in Australia just visited us yesterday. And when we listen to them talk, they constantly come back to the Dharma. They talk about how in the morning when they wake up, the first thing they do is their practice. And throughout the day, they keep thinking about the Dharma. Bhutan, as some of you may know, is a Buddhist country. Buddhism is written into their constitution. I can see it being so successful. It is really a way of life. If they can do it, so can we. So can we as Buddhists make our Noble Eightfold Path our life. And then we create an environment within our family so that, and also within our Buddhist family, our Dharma family, but also taking that out into the communities that we belong in a very creative way, so that we all can regain our attention. We all can be more mindful in creating a world where ethics is key, where we want wisdom, where we work towards wisdom, and we have these I would say, more mindful practices. So for example, here at Nantian Institute, before we start our classes, before we start our meetings, we have a pause, a meditation pause, and then we start. So that again allows us to build that practice into our work environment. And in classes, we also end with reflective exercises so that we try to embody whatever we have learned. So as Mahayana Buddhists, bodhicitta, the enlightening mind, is extremely important. So just to repeat, the bodhicitta is a commitment to attain or to manifest full awakening, not for myself, but for the benefit of all sentient beings. So it is a very altruistic aspiration. It's grounded in compassion, but it gives us agency. See, what happens in social media is that we seem to have lost our agency. It's those cookies, not the edible ones. It's those cookies, the digital cookies, which are determining what we see, how we consume. We lose agency. So bodhicitta gives us the agency back by saying, this is my vow. My vow is that I want to be fully awakened for the benefit of others. And as a result, we make the world in a different way. So in an attention ecology, now, so this is my contribution to the group of scholars who are talking about attention ecology, is to go beyond the Noble Eightfold Path and look at bodhicitta. So this means that we cultivate loving kindness and compassion and the four immeasurables, sympathetic joy and equanimity, by placing our attention on the suffering of ourselves and others. So some of you have mentioned in the chat the kind of suffering that we are going through, and we are not alone with others who have shared the same suffering. Feel that compassion for ourselves and others, and at the same time, generate loving kindness for ourselves. Not to just blame ourselves, not to again, tell ourselves, I did it again. No, but rather to send myself some kindness, some love, and recognize that suffering. And then to remind myself again, bodhicitta. I'm here to reduce suffering for myself and others. To do that, I have to regain my attention. I'll try again the next moment. So, what does bodhicitta mean to you? And if you think back, do you see it possible for bodhicitta to bring purpose to your life in the digital world? Again, feel free to unmute and speak or put your comments in the chat. This looks like a hard question, is it? Any thoughts from anyone?
I could see how the bodhicitta mind frame would help direct the use of digital resources to further study of Buddhism and the practice. I just don't know in reality if it could win that battle with me where I am in my practice. I give a certain amount of time to my studies and my practice, and it's hard to pull that other time away from the running after the clicks and the entertainment value of the media. Digital.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. And I don't know whether we need to divide that there is this time for Dharma and this time for non-Dharma activities, and whether it's possible to say that all of life is Dharma activities, and that all of life is an opportunity for us to look for kindness. Kindness. Shifang Temple, San Diego. You've got a raised hand.
Yeah, hi, Venerable Denny here. I was thinking about the second question, how might bodhicitta bring purpose to your life in the digital world? Thinking of the digital world, one of the things I so much like about our order is Bodhi light tales,
Yeah.
And so that brings a lot of comfort and joy, I would even say, into my own life to be able to read those every day. Thank you.
Oh, so beautiful indeed. And that was what Peter said as well. There is this conscious attempt to go out and look for all these Dharma sessions that are out there in the digital space. Yes, and there's so much good stuff also in the chat about how we could use the bodhicitta as a commitment to, that means compassion, and how we could use that to spread Dharma using the technology. That when we respond, every click could be, again, motivated by the bodhicitta. Shifang Temple Social Education. I think that's Varma. Hi.
Yeah, yes, it's me. I just wanted to say also that I think it would really benefit the people who are making these technologies to also become familiar with these concepts. And I know of an example of some software developers who are actually trying to develop a Bodhisattva AI. So
Yes.
the way the AI systems work right now is that they're just trying to maximize the system and minimize friction within the system, but they're trying to create an AI that maximizes compassion. And it's like operating through the principle of how can this benefit everyone. And so I think if our digital world was also remade according to these principles, it would be very different.
Yeah, and it can probably spread much faster. So there are always the positive side, and now it's how do we put the Dharma into this space. And I guess this is where the intergenerational dialogues will be very helpful, and also interdisciplinary dialogues will be extremely helpful. Oh, love all the wisdom that's in the chat. So keep that going while I try to finish the last bits in the next 4 minutes. also. So I want to promote this particular concept of the metta-verses, where metta means loving kindness, benevolence, unconditional love or friendliness. So Venerable Master Shen Yuan, our teacher defines acts of loving kindness as selflessly serving and assisting with wisdom, and giving charity without expecting anything in return. Giving charity without expecting anything in return. So that very altruistic act, that's metta, or Buddhist loving kindness. So research has shown that there are many benefits of metta or loving kindness meditation. And some of them are listed here on the slide. In interest of time, I'm not going to read them out, but they range from individual to social benefits. Now, why do I promote metta? Because in the digital world, actually what's spreading faster is violence, is hatred, is anger. Because those are the negative emotions that the advertisers have discovered will draw consumers. So all the more, we need to look for the antidote. And according to Buddhism, the antidote to hatred, anger, is loving kindness. So that's the reason why I think metta is going to be so essential in this new digital world. Whether the metta is physical or spread through the digital world, metta is highly relevant. Then communities. Communities are needed because it's very hard to practice alone. It's so easy to go back into our entrenched habits. But if we are in communities of like-minded people like we do here in TBIF, it's easier, much easier for us to succeed because unity is strength. But unfortunately, let me tell you what technology also does. Technology has the potential to divide us. So technology tends to promote division of people. And on top of that, it also widens the inequality gaps. So that's why we get mental health issues, so much more mental health issues. Some research have attributed a fair bit of this to technological use. So therefore, the need for communities to overcome this dividedness, and therefore metaverses. So this community, for itself, in itself is a metaverse that you come together and we can discuss the Dharma, discuss how we can be more kind to one another unconditionally, how we can grow our bodhicitta in the face of circumstances that seem quite difficult to succumb. And we've got so much good tips from everyone today. So I run a Sunday check-in session, and I see that as a prototype metaverse. And there's an opportunity. We've gone past the 150th episode in October last year. But it's an opportunity for us to develop the habit of a pause every week, and also to get to check in with one another in a caring and sharing environment. So I see metaverses as a way of practicing the attention ecology, guided by bodhicitta, as a direct antidote to the negative impacts of the attention economy. And rather than being a persuasive technology, I see metaverses as a meta technology. So in conclusion, I like this particular slide from The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, because the mole asks the little boy, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the little boy says, be kind. So I really hope that the technology is really what helps us to be kind, to remind us to be kind, to help one another to be kind in such challenging times, especially as we are at the cusp of so much planetary, planet-wide crises that hopefully we all can come together in conversation and then help one another generate little tips that could help us through our daily life. So I hope that today's little workshop on how Buddhism can help in our digitally or technologically advancing world is useful to you. And I appreciate very much your comments. I now return the floor back to Varma.
Thank you so much, Venerable. It really gave us a lot to think about. We do have a few minutes for questions or comments. So I'd like to open it up to, we have some people in person here at the temple and of course, anyone on Zoom. So
How many people are in person?
we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, including me.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Anyone?
We have a Buddhist newspaper, you know? We can bring us the news.
Denny's comment is, why can't we have a Buddhist newspaper that can bring us the news?
We do have Married Times. Married Times English has some English news as well.
I think he meant like a Buddhist interpretation of the world news, maybe.
Well, the community can do it. So that's a mission. It's a mission for those of us who are interested to give a Buddhist interpretation of all the happenings of the world, but also, that's the editorial, the Buddhist editorial, but also highlighting a lot of the kindness that's taking place in the world. That was what Married Times was about. Hey, Peter.
Yes, Venerable, I want to take advantage of your appearance here to ask you a question, specifically incorporating your background of a MBA, Master of Business Administration. You know, I too had my MBA and I graduated and went right into the business world with advertising and marketing. How do you work the bodhicitta lifestyle or orientation into what is a money-oriented business world?
You know that is always something which to consider. First of all, you have the power to build in a different paradigm. So for example, I also have to try to think of ways to market the Nantian Institute, the best kept secret in the world. I don't know how to do it because I'm not in marketing. However, what I do know is that what I'm promoting is something that's of benefit. And when I'm promoting something, I try not to tell lies to begin with, right? Keep my precepts as much as possible. And the other thing is to promote to people who really need your service and your product is not a bad thing at all. In fact, I think businesses exist for a reason. They are fulfilling a need. However, there's always a middle way. Our problem is when we try to expand it too far out and try to make all the money out there. I like B Corps. You know, the idea of circular economy. There are many things we can do, perhaps to promote instead how sustainable the company is, to promote instead the values that the company stands for. I think that's a different way that we could do for marketing. Don't you think, Peter?
Yes, yes. And it'll be interesting in my next life, if I happen to be a marketer again, if I'll be able to take those opportunities back into the business world.
I'm starting to think about my next life as well, because I'm reaching age, right? And I realized that in order to do that in the next life, I have to start creating those seeds in this life. The seeds this life has to be strong enough that I can use it in the next life.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Venerable. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi. Thank you so much, Venerable. This was fascinating. And I wanted to piggyback off of Peter's question. I also come from the digital marketing world. And I was very curious as to your thoughts of the corporate and capitalistic subsumption of well-being applications, mindfulness, and the way that large corporations and businesses are using it as a means to control employees now.
I know. I feel so sad that mindfulness is being used as a tool to increase productivity and for people to make more money as a result, and to numb yourself and say, oh, now you can do more because you now have a clearer head. That's not what mindfulness is about. But
No.
however, I'm also grateful for the fact that now that tool can go out and people have the skill to use it differently. So everything is a double-edged sword. So now I have the tools spread out there, paid for by these corporations. More people know how to meditate, and we use that opportunity to say, now come to Shifang Temple, come to the temples, and we give you the Dharma. We tell you what else, how else you can use that skill. And hopefully more people will wake up. And that's our mission. And that's where we need digital marketing.
Yeah, it's true. I actually just started becoming a reseller on Depop and Poshmark and all of these applications that's totally about sustainability and making sure clothing doesn't find its way to, whatever, landfills and all of that. So I feel that even there's a double-edged sword because I can give my money back to other sellers by buying things, but I need to remind myself that I'm getting rid of stuff. I don't need these things in the first place. So it's about balance, absolutely.
Wow, congratulations. You see, that's awakening, isn't it? Change, that's the Dharma in our life. That's practice in our life. That's bodhicitta in our life. Nice. Oh, thank you. Thank you. We really need digital marketers. Digital marketers for the Dharma. You're right on time, Dharma.
Thanks to you, and everyone for such wonderful comments and thoughts. I think this is it's so helpful and practical for all of us. Thank you so much, Venerable, for this really wonderful talk. We all really enjoyed it, I think. And I just wanted to make a quick announcement before we all depart, which is our next TBIF, which will be May 31st, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time to 8:30 p.m. And the speaker will be Mr. Andrew Noy, and the title of their talk is Single-Minded and Undistracted Meditation and Pure Land.
Wow.
So a nice connection to your talk today. Oh, yes. And we can do the dedication of merit now, please.
Can Venerable Jue Wei lead us with the dedication, Mary?
Sure. So we do hands. May kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity pervade all worlds. May we cherish and build affinities to benefit all beings. May Chan, Pure Land, and precepts inspire equality and patience. May our humility and gratitude give rise to great vows. And may the merits of today's session be dedicated to you, to all Buddhists, and to all sentient beings. May we all be able to find our Buddha nature, develop our bodhicitta in service of all. And may we have that humanistic Pure Land here and now. Thank you all. and have a very good evening for all who are probably 11:30 p.m. now. And for everyone else, thank you so much for your attention and your participation. Thank you. Sweet dreams.